Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And for my French speaking people, bonjour ou bonsoir. How are you doing today? I'm feeling great. So, today, if you read the title, we're going to be talking about CSS Box Model. And now, the box model is very fundamental. This is an important part of CSS, so I'm going to be explaining it. Okay, so now we're going to be very um, simplistic and smart about this. So we're going to be breaking our explanations into questions. So these questions are, what is a box model? One. Two, how to use them. Three, why are they important or what are they used for? So we're going to be answering all these questions. What is a box model? That was the first question. So a box model is basically a core concept in CSS used in design and layout. It's basically how an HTML element is given a dimension or a size in the browser. So basically the HTML element is given a dimension, a height, and a width, basically. That's the basic basis of it. So you can think about HTML elements as boxes, right? So they all have heights and widths and all that. Right. So now let me name a few HTML elements you might know, like images, text, GIFs, videos, etc., even divs. Yeah, so that's that. Now we've answered what is a box model, so we can recap by saying it's a concept in CSS that is used to give dimensions to an HTML element in the browser. So now the second question will be how to use them. So I'm going to be using an analogy of an atom to explain this. I'm going to be popping one up on the screen right now. Yeah, so as we can see, an atom has a nucleus, and the nucleus consists of neutrons and protons, right? Of course, and then the shells have electrons in them. So I'm going to be using this same idea. It's well structured for the box model. So now the box model has structures, of course. So now what are these structures? So the first structure will be content. So now what is the content exactly? The content is the HTML element displayed on the browser or in the browser. So basically, we can say that an image could be the content, or a GIF, or a video, or a text, or a div. Anything basically can be the main content. So it's like the nucleus of it all, of our structure. I'll be showing an example very shortly. So keep this whole structure thing in your mind. So let's recap real quick. So let's just say the content is equal to the HTML element. That's simple enough, right? So the next structure will be the padding. So now we've all heard padding once in our life. If you've not, then welcome. I'll be glad to explain that to you. So now naturally the padding is the next shell or the next box that envelopes the content. So now basically this is used to generate space around the content, but they're defined within borders. So that hints you that after the padding, there's something else that envelopes all of it, like the padding and the content, which is the border. Simple enough. So CSS allows us to have complete control over the padding of an element. So the next question would be, how is this possible? Well, we have simple properties like padding. So thanks to the padding, we can simply have space around the content. So now how do we exactly pad in CSS? So in CSS, you can pad by either having individual sides or you can have like a shorthand type. And also I have to explain that there's a cycle with this. So it starts with padding top, padding right, padding bottom, padding left. If you notice, there's a pattern with this. It works like a clock. So from top to the right to the bottom to the left. Simple enough. Very simple, right? And now for the second part, there's a shorthand. So for example, we have like just the property padding, and then we're like 20 pixels, 30 pixels, 40 pixels, and 50 pixels, right? So that makes the whole thing nice. So now what exactly are we doing? That like we can see that there are four values, right? Each value follows the chronological principle, which is top, right, bottom, and left. So basically 20 pixels is for the top, 30 pixels for the right, 40 pixels for the bottom, and 50 pixels for the left. Very simple. And then if you have three values, you can have it like the first value is the top, the second value is right and left, and then the last value is the bottom value. So if you have only two values, the first value will be top and down, the second value will be left and right. Simple enough. Now, if you have just one value, then it'll take all sides to be the amount, which is 20 pixels in this case. Nice. Right. So I have to mention that in CSS we can measure by using pixels, ems, rems, percentages, or points. But we will be using pixels for now. And if you want me to cover how to use rems, ems, pixels, and all that, like the measurements, please drop a like on this video, share, subscribe, and tell a friend. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. So now back to the video. Now, one more thing about the padding is that when you give, for example, I'll be showing you inside the code. I'll run through it real quick. So now when you give something a width, like you give your element a width, and then you give it a padding, it adds onto the padding. And I'm gonna explain how to fix that. So if you have maybe, for example, 200 width, 200 pixels worth of width, and then you have a padding of 25, it'll be inside and not just add to it. There's a way to fix that. But for now, I just want to show you the structure. Exactly. So now we're going to be moving to borders, right? So naturally, the border envelopes the padding and the content. Simple enough, simple to understand. Now, what does it do? It allows us to specify a style, width, and color of the element's border. I'll show you exactly how it looks like. Don't worry about it. So we're going to be moving on to margins, right? And margins are all properties, right? The content is not a property. It's the actual HTML element, right? So now this property, which is the margin, is used to make space around the element, like outside of the border naturally. So this is just like the padding, but the space is like the element, whilst the padding space is inside the element. Simple enough, right? It also has the same ideology for like the padding. So it has individual sides and it has a shorthand. So just like we explained, more like the padding top, padding right, padding bottom, and padding left, it has the same thing, but you just change the keyword to margin, sorry. So it will be margin top, margin right, margin bottom, margin left. Simple enough, right? So now that's simple. That's basically it. But like we have the understanding, but now we have to understand the syntax, right? We have to put the syntax to the test. So earlier I mentioned that when you're padding, it adds to the width, right? So now we're gonna be talking about how to calculate it. So in case you just maybe just want to work like that, depends on your workflow. So basically the calculation is total element width equals width plus left padding plus right padding plus left border plus right border plus left margin plus right margin. So basically all I just mentioned was the padding right and padding left will add the border left and border right will also add to the width, the margin same, and then it'll calculate only for the width. It'll take the full width. So basically it'll take only the padding, border, and margins values for the left and right and add them together to give you the full width. And then the same ideology for the height. So margin top, margin bottom, border top, border bottom, padding top, padding bottom. Simple enough, right? Of course. So now let's move on to code.